Hey guys, it's Brandon.
Yeah, Carrie.
We're here today to talk about fasting and how it can affect us on a mental and physical side. So we had some requests for fasting, and I wanted to explain my personal experience with it over the last, we'll say now going on 2 years, where 12 months ago I had just gotten off a fast where for the previous 12 I went from 320 pounds down to 190. And what I did during that time was I limited the amount of meat and fruits and vegetables, not to non-existent, but I just primarily drink a lot of water. For me, it was distilled water or spring water. I tried to get the cleanest water I could find in my local town. And at that point, what I began to notice was from a mental standpoint, I was more clear. I could think things through more easily and recognize what is, we'll call it right and wrong. But also from a physical standpoint, I had more energy than I had ever had. I'm 38 now. I was 37 then, and I felt better than I had ever felt. And this is coming from a person who played minor league ice hockey. So I know that it has some benefits, and we're going to get into some of the things that we've experienced from it. But also from a spiritual level, I think your spirit, for me at least, wants to, we'll say, test you or make sure that you're serious about things. And there's things that are going to come up once you start to change your mental and spiritual state to come into alignment. And when that happens, you got to basically stay firm and continue that pattern so that you step off of the old patterns.
Those are some really great observations, Brandon. I think from my own personal experience, the best times I fasted was it's probably been 20 or 30 years ago. And I'd been going through a lot of things in my life. And so I started fasting. Probably the longest time I went was about 3 weeks on just a water fast. And I don't know so much about the weight loss, but what I did notice is that spiritually, because that was my primary purpose, was to get more into spirit and less into flesh and searching for my next meal or, meal preparation and things of that nature. So I was just trying to get more into spirit. And so what I found is that it did bring a lot more clarity, a lot more depth, perhaps, of the things that I had been familiar with at that time. And many, many insights to things that didn't make sense to me at the time that I've since had more insights and things with lately, I guess. But I think ultimately, like I said, it was for a spiritual purpose altogether, and to try to get myself where I would listen more to my inner voice. Now, what I did do for that was I would read for so long, usually about an hour or so before I went to sleep. And of course, the voices in our head, they like to start their chatter about the time we start trying to get into reading something. And so I used a technique that's called thought stopping, and I would literally tell my mind no. And then I would wait a few seconds and listen for the silence. And then when the voices would, the chatter would come back, I would tell it no again and continue this until it stopped completely. And so fasting allowed me to be able to take back my own voice within my mind, where I could then feed my spirit that spiritual food rather than feed this body the flesh food. Because the more we feed this body and focus on those things, it distracts us from seeking those higher things. And so, and there's this is not an all in type thing. There's variations and to different degrees within each of this. But for me personally, that was the thing that worked the best. And then when I came off the fast, I came in with the vegetables and just kind of got my body reused to eating again like it had been.
I've noticed throughout my life that whenever I had an event come up, oftentimes what I would do is I would, rather than going within and seeking during those silent times, I would try and fill those times up. To me, I would call that ignoring the spirit or dampening the spirit. And I would seek something outside of myself to consume or to fill up the body and satisfy the body. And so when you do that, be it alcohol, or be it fast food, or be it pornography, whatever the vice is, then what you're going to end up doing is hindering your own self in listening to your higher self, your spirit, and listening within. So for me, when I had things occur to me, I noticed a pattern, because there's been several things that have happened. It's that quiet time that I've been left with, well, I don't know what to do during this, or I don't know what to think, or should I be doing something else? And listening to your spirit is trying to talk, at least for me, talk to me and say, just think it through and be quiet, be patient, and do what you know is right, as opposed to going out and trying to, we'll call it, pleasure the body.
Those are some really good points. I really like the thing about the pattern recognition. I know with every reset in my own personal life that I've come to the conclusion now that it wasn't just me being punished by an evil, wicked world or the Matrix and this and that because they hate me or they want to kill me. Honestly, if they kill us all, they starve themselves to death. So I'm not really convinced that that's the actual program going on. However, I do believe that they use a variety of different ways to influence the type and quantity of energy that we put out. So, nevertheless, with fasting, what to me it seems that the purpose of it is to cut off more or less our own need to be fed by or need to feed our own fleshly desires to the point that they silence the voice of our own inner self and our own inner spirit. So looking at a person's, I'm not a chakra person, but I just use it as a way to organize thinking. And so in the lower fields on that strength regions, whatever they call them, is the flesh, and then the heart is in the center, and then the upper ones have more to deal with the spirit. And so what we find out is that most of the things in this world are geared toward the bottom three, the red, the yellow, and orange of that particular system, whereas the blue, indigo, and purple represent more the spiritual aspect. And so the heart is the dividing line between the two. So there is a heart for the flesh and a heart for the upper spirit, if you will. And so I think with fasting, what that helps to do is to bring in to where this vessel is not, or us within this vessel is not being controlled by the vessel. The vessel is the thing, and that I mean the meatsuit, the body, whatever we want to call it, is the thing that is the flesh, and it demands to be fed. It is the thing that is made out of lack, and so it has certain needs that is part of the programming. I think that the more that we fast and we become separated from those lower energies, that we increase our own energy and we walk more in the spirit so that we don't have to fulfill those desires of the flesh, whatever that means to a person. I'm not saying that you must stop and cease and desist from this activity, this behavior, and that. What I am saying is I would highly suggest finding a balance to where those things, or the need to participate in those things, no longer replaces your own listening to your own spirit. For example, I used to, every time I got in the car, man, I had to crank up the radio, turn on the newest news station, knew all the songs, knew all this, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't have time to listen to my own spirit. Now I don't even turn on the radio when I get in the car. That's my time to think, to be with myself. There's just something about the hum of the engine and the whole thing. It's like my flesh goes into neutral. And so that could be a type of a fast from that influence on my own self, so that my spirit, I can hear it more clearly. I hear it more clearly early in the morning, sometimes late at night, sometimes it's just out of the blue. Something will come through, but I have have stopped depending upon those fleshly things, and not saying that I no longer eat, I don't engage in other things, that's ridiculous, because I do. I still live in this suit. And so this for now is the home that I reside in, whether the home is a cell, it's a prison, whatever the word may be, to really at this point is irrelevant. It is what it is. And so I think for us the task is how do we best deal with the situation that we find ourselves currently in. And I think that's where fasting can be a help, because it can help us separate our true higher self from this lower nature that is bound to this earth, and that is, in all honesty, these are all appetites, behaviors, and things, lines of thinking, I guess, that are relegated to this realm, whether it's 3D, 5D, probably on up to 7D. But out in the beyond that, most of what we deal with right here is virtually non-existent. It still exists in some way, shape, or form, but at the higher levels, I just don't think that it's in the same manner, because everything there is more energetic, whereas here it's that projection of energy into dense matter, which gives us these fleshly looking bodies and what appears to be very solid to us. It's because this world is dense, very, very dense. So I think with fasting helps us to separate our own spiritual nature from our fleshly nature. And I think with that, it can increase our own spiritual nature so that it's easier for us to step out of the program groove that this body is programmed to remain in the midst of.
Absolutely right, Carrie. Something you brought up made me think of the idea of fasting in general. When people hear the word fasting, they think immediately what somebody did in the Bible, or that they have to cut out food. But fasting is in everything. So it could be TV, it could be video games, it could be your cell phone, how much you're listening to a specific channel on the YouTube. It could be hanging out with the same friends day in and day out. I think you have to, it's all about balance. So not to cut out just meat or not to cut out vegetables. It's to have a healthy balance of all of the things. And I think that's what it really comes down to. So when we fast, don't think it as just one area that feeds the body, be it food or water. Think of it in all areas: electronics, movies, all the things. Pass it back to you, Carrie.
Absolutely. And I think to add to that would be so that the fasting helps us again to break off those controls. It's the equivalent of, we were talking about Gulliver's Travels yesterday, and about Gulliver being washed ashore and the Lilliputians tying him down with their little ropes and stuff. And to me, that is, they anchored him to this plane in that body. And so each of those ties that bind could represent a different vice or a different appetite, a different need, a different deficiency, because these bodies are very deficient compared to the spirit that is contained within. And so with that, I think that's probably one of the main purposes, is to keep those lines of delineation. The other main purpose I can see now, and this just came to me really more recently, is that of, Brandon touched on it a little earlier, was the pattern recognition. And what we mean by that, or what I mean by that, is that through fasting, if we will sit quietly with ourselves and start to review the different things that we call as traumas or events, significant events that have happened through our life. I've even taken the time and drawn a lifeline of significant events and my approximate age and the other people involved at that. And then I can look at that through my spirit eyes as an adult, especially if there are events during childhood, and I can start to see particular patterns in ways that I dealt with things as a child, and then I can deal with them with my inner adult and go back and do the reconciliations or invitations or whatever needs to happen there. But more recently, as an adult, I have looked back and decided that I have seen that in different relationships in my adult life, I have tended to keep the same type of people around me, or I have been drawn to the same type of people, which almost always turn out to be have narcissistic traits. Honestly, the incidents of a truly narcissistic personality disorder are not very common, although I think they probably will start to be more common. But what I'm saying this for is that with my own self, I was able to see that the pattern I did was to be drawn to a particular personality type of people that seem very confident, very outgoing, very masculine guys or whatever, that are very sure of themselves. And even with females, it's usually stronger females that are confident. And because I feel like sometimes that I'm not very confident, I guess. And so it's my own pattern recognition that these people generally tended to have these personality traits that basically suck the life out of me. And I was in agreement with that because I wanted to keep those people in my life. I thought, this was love and it was all this and that. And really it wasn't. It was a feeding fest. And when I recognized and was able to go back and heal within my own self the deficiency, my own lack, my own, I guess, holes in my whatever personality, I don't know, to where I could recognize those unhealed places in me that I sought healing through the strength of others, looking to outside sources. Then I was able to recognize those patterns. And what I've noticed me doing lately is getting back into my own strength and being able to stand up and tell people, no, I'm not going to allow you to treat me like that. I'm not going to allow you to, I'm done being the whooping post. I'm done being the doormat. I'm done. And so what fasting has done in that sense is helped me to be able to identify the program groove that I had been in, and then to be able to strengthen myself to step out of that by depending more on my spirit to do that, and learning to listen to my own spirit rather than being distracted by music or constantly having to have this on or constantly having to have people around me and those types of things. Because inevitably people will be around you in general for two reasons. And one is to be a distraction, and the other one is to send you down the wrong path. And I think that these are a couple of things that we really need to use to evaluate. And fasting from those variety of different things like Brandon was talking about is a great way to start and a good way to start. But I think when we go into a fast, no matter what kind it is, we're going to get out of it the same energy we go into it with. And if we go into it with the expectation of the purification rather than dread because I'm not going to get to eat my favorite pancake every morning, I think that we're going to get a better result out of that. And just be quiet. Be okay with sitting with yourself. And if the old brain starts popping off a few things and won't shut up, then practice the thing of thought stopping. And I said it out loud, stop, and wait for the quiet, and then I would do it again until I finally had the quiet I wanted, and then I was able to start reading the information that was more appropriate for my brain, because I was trying to strengthen my own spirit and go that direction. So that was kind of all I wanted to add.
Well put, Carrie. All right, guys, that's going to wrap us up for tonight on fasting. Leave your comments and questions in the bottom section down there. We take recommendations. That's why we went on this route today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.